ID in the future in order to, one of the reasons to be to tackle migration?
Well, look, my long-term personal political view has always been in favour of ID cards. In fact, I supported the last Labour government's introduction of ID cards. The first bill I spoke on in Parliament was the ID cards bill, which the then Conservative Lib Dem coalition scrapped. So I have a long-standing position, which anybody who's familiar with my...
Because it wasn't in the manifesto, was that a mistake?
Well, I have a long-standing position of my own, which those who are familiar with my political track record will know that is something that I've always supported. And look, my other colleagues in government have started this conversation about how we might roll out more digital ID. As Home Secretary, I'm very clear we do have to deal with the pull factors that are making the UK a destination of choice for those that are on the move around the world. And I want to make sure that we can clamp down on that. I think that a system of digital ID can also help with illegal working, enforcement of other laws as well. So there is a broader piece of work here to be done by government, but I do think that that has a role to play for dealing with our migration system as well.
Forgive me, could we be in a situation where everybody would be compelled to have a digital ID at some point?
Well, the government's position at the moment is to look at digital ID, further rollout. I'll obviously be discussing that with my colleagues, some of whom are also, like me, new to the role, but we will be setting out our plans in the very near future about how we want to deal with the pull factors. The Prime Minister has also been clear. We have got to deal not just with disrupting the trade in people that is bringing people across the channel, but we've also got to deal with some of the reasons why they're getting in the boat in the first place, looking to come to the UK and to our...
The appointment of Shabana Mahmood as the new Home Secretary has already ignited controversy, with her remarks on the possible rollout of digital ID cards raising questions about political legitimacy and government overreach. In one of her first public comments since taking office, Mahmood stated bluntly, "My long-term view has always been in favour of ID cards." She went further, signalling that the government's position is to look at digital ID further rollout. That declaration immediately lit the fuse on a debate that has simmered in British politics for 2 decades. Should citizens be required to carry a universal form of government, issued identification, and more crucially, does the government have the authority to impose such a system without first seeking public consent? Britain has historically resisted compulsory ID schemes. Previous attempts, including the Labour government's ill-fated push in the early 2000s, collapsed under public backlash and concerns over surveillance, privacy, and cost. The Conservative-led coalition ultimately scrapped the plan in 2010, branding it an affront to civil liberties. Now, with Mahmood's intervention, the question is back on the table. Yet, unlike earlier debates, the framing has shifted from physical ID cards to digital identification, potentially tied to apps, biometric data, or online verification systems. Proponents argue this would streamline access to services, cut down on fraud, and strengthen border security. Critics, however, warn of creeping authoritarianism, the erosion of privacy, and the creation of a surveillance infrastructure ripe for abuse. The most immediate problem for Mahmood and the government is political legitimacy. Digital ID was not part of the governing party's election manifesto, and critics are quick to seize on that omission as evidence that ministers lack the democratic mandate to pursue it. Opposition voices, civil liberties groups, and some backbench MPs are already sharpening their lines of attack. That this represents policy by stealth, imposed from above without consultation or consent. The government risks walking into the same trap that doomed previous ID card schemes, pushing ahead without a clear public mandate and underestimating the depth of public resistance. Supporters of digital ID stress the practical benefits. With rising concerns about illegal migration, fraud, and security breaches, a secure digital identification system could be sold as a tool of modern governance. Mahmood's allies argue that Britain lags behind much of Europe, where digital ID schemes are already commonplace, and that refusing to modernize leaves the UK vulnerable, yet civil liberties campaigners are unconvinced. They note that once digital ID infrastructure is in place, its use often expands far beyond the original justification, creeping into everyday life from employment to banking to healthcare. In effect, it risks turning participation in modern society into a matter of government-issued permission. For Mahmood, this is an early test of her political instincts and her ability to manage a potentially explosive debate. The Home Office is no stranger to controversy, and many of her predecessors have been politically consumed by high-profile rows over security, migration, or policing. Choosing to publicly stake out a position on digital ID within days of her appointment suggests she is willing to confront contentious issues head-on. The Home Secretary's remarks don't mean digital ID is an imminent reality. What they do reveal, however, is that the government is actively exploring a rollout, an exploration that could trigger one of the fiercest debates of the new political season.
I think most people will say, Leo, that they start, as soon as Reform UK's party conference finished, I think within half an hour, they were out talking about deportations and visa crackdowns. I mean, they must be absolutely terrified of Nigel Farage at this point.
Yeah, I mean, how the Overton window shifts. Now, Labour are taking policies from Donald Trump. This would have been condemned by Labour just, a year ago, 6 months ago? But I've got to ask, I mean, this totally makes sense. So basically, they're going to threaten countries that don't take deported or deportable migrants and criminals and people like that back. They're going to say to those countries, well, if you're not going to take them back, we're not going to issue new visas to take more of your people to come here. Why wasn't this already standard practice? This just sounds like the most sensible thing in the world. But, I mean, it's got to be done because Labour really need to restore confidence, not just in the asylum system. They need to restore confidence in themselves. I mean, they keep saying, oh, we're going to stop the boats. And every day they seem to be getting more. We're 1,090 yesterday. It's mental. I mean, thank God autumn's coming.
What was really funny about this, before we move, what was really funny about that whole thing is that for about 5 days there were no boats, and all these people on social media, I don't know if you were one of them, Benjamin, I don't know, but all these people on social media were going, look at what a great job the government's done. They were celebrating it. It was utterly hilarious. And then the day after they celebrated it, 1,097 came in one day. Just goes to show the government is not in charge of the weather, guys. So Jake, what do you make of this visa threat? Is it just about a bunch of hot air?
Completely and utterly unbelievable. So if you look at the coverage, I mean, look, great in theory, I agree with you. What a brilliant theory. It is never going to happen. One of the countries that the new Home Secretary has picked out in her sort of rant is India. Well, let's not forget, just a few months ago, when the government did a trade deal with India, the Indian government ran rings around Keir Starmer and his team. Not only did they give visa-free access to the United Kingdom under that trade deal, but they also said if you come here as an Indian national to work, you are exempt from national insurance, making it cheaper to employ people who come to the UK in terms of their own tax, cheaper for them to work here in the UK than employ Brits. And what really made me laugh about it was the quote that Shabana Mahmood gave when she went into the Home Office, and she said, and I have to put my specs on for this, she said, "Hello everyone, I'm going to bring my A game. I hope those of you who don't, well, you know where the door is." Well, let's wait and see. I wonder if there was a mass walkout of civil servants. I very much doubt it.
Well, I doubt there was anyone in the office. She probably went, there's an empty office. They're all working from home.
Exactly. And those of you, you know where the sort of off button is on your laptop when you're working from home in the home as a Home Office civil servant. Yeah. This is a joke. It's not going to happen. She can say what she wants. This is just fiddling while Rome burns.
But in fairness to her, I mean, she is one of the ministers who's managed to get some things done.
I mean, it's a pretty low bar, though. She's the most effective and efficient Labour minister in a completely failing government. Congratulations. Don't pass go. Don't collect £200. Here's a wooden spoon.
Benjamin, good, bad, the ugly?
Us on the panel, or...?
Somewhere, eh?
Well, look, first of all, it's not correct that Indians can pay... We can't employ Indians on lower tax. It's only Indian companies, so let's just put that right, whether you've got your spectacles on or not.
So they don't pay national insurance, though, when they're here?
If they have to work for an Indian company and be seconded here, so we
so
can't
if I
employ
work
them
for an Indian company, would I have to pay national insurance? Oh, yes, I would. So what I said is actually correct.
We don't have double taxation with 50 countries around the world, and that's existed for a long time, and your government introduced produced deals with exactly the same clause in them. So, you know, I think the arsonist telling us about how to prevent fires is a bit rich. But what I would say is that, actually, one of these countries is India. So it's India, Pakistan and Nigeria. Since Brexit, there's been a sharp rise in those three countries sending migrants here.
That's true.
Especially Nigeria. But, you know, with India, it's actually really hard to get a visa to India, even a tourist visa. They're very strict. They're very unpredictable. I've been rejected for one. Carol Malone has been rejected for one on really dubious counts. And so, you know, the idea...
I definitely won't be getting one.
Yeah,
I did a whole story that sent the Indian national press into haywire when I criticised their rocket launch while we were still funding the giving them foreign aid.
So the idea that there were no consequences, I think, is kind of absurd, right? Because if they don't take back their criminals or their unwanted people, then why should we let them in?